Long ago, in a quiet village nestled between rolling hills and thick forests, there lived a young girl named Lyra. She was known for her curious heart and her knack for finding beauty in the most unexpected places. Her favorite spot was the edge of the Whispering Woods, a place shrouded in mystery and magic. The villagers often warned Lyra about venturing too far into the woods. The Whispering Woods hold secrets, they said. Some are meant to stay hidden. But Lyra, bold as she was, felt drawn to its golden-leafed trees and the soft murmurs of wind that seemed to speak her name. One crisp autumn evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, Lyra noticed a flickering light deep within the forest. It wasn't the glow of fireflies or the shimmer of moonlight. It was something else entirely. Gripping her small lantern tightly, she decided to follow the light. The deeper Lyra went, the more enchanting the forest became. The trees glowed faintly, their bark veined with threads of silver, and the air hummed with the songs of unseen creatures. As she walked, the light grew brighter until she stumbled upon a clearing, unlike anything she had ever seen. In the center of the clearing stood a tall, glassy tree, its branches stretched high, cradling a single radiant lantern that hovered just above its peak. The lantern shone with a warm, golden light that filled Lyra with a sense of peace and wonder. She reached out to touch the tree, but before her fingers could graze its surface, a voice rang out. "Who dares approach the Everglow Lantern?" Lyra jumped back, startled. Before her appeared a fox-like creature with fur that shimmered like stardust. Its eyes were deep pools of twilight, and when it spoke, its voice was both gentle and firm. "I'm Lyra," she said, trying to steady her voice. "I saw the light and followed it here." The creature tilted its head, studying her. "This is no ordinary lantern. It is the Everglow, a beacon of hope for those who are lost. Why have you come, child?" Lyra thought for a moment. "I'm not lost," she said slowly, "but I feel like I'm searching for something. I just don't know what." The creature's gaze softened. "The Everglow chooses only those with hearts brave enough to seek the unknown. If you wish to carry its light, you must complete 3 tasks to prove your worth." Lyra's eyes sparkled with determination. "What are the tasks?" The fox explained. "First, you must gather a star from the River of Dreams. Second, you must unlock the Song of the Silent Oak. And third, you must find the heart of the forest, hidden where no light shines." Without hesitation, Lyra agreed, and the fox vanished, leaving behind a trail of glittering footprints to guide her. Lyra followed the footprints until she reached a shimmering river, its surface sparkling like 1,000 tiny stars. She knelt by the water's edge, unsure how to retrieve a star. Suddenly she remembered a rhyme her grandmother used to sing. "Catch the gleam, a fleeting spark, in the stillness of the dark." Taking a deep breath, Lyra cupped her hands and plunged them into the water. At first she felt nothing but cool ripples, but as she stilled her movements, a soft glow appeared. She carefully lifted her hands, and there it was, a single star pulsing gently in her palms. The fox's footprints led her to a towering oak tree with bark so thick it seemed impenetrable. The tree stood silent, its massive branches outstretched like arms frozen in time. Lyra noticed a small hollow in its trunk, just big enough to fit her star. She placed it inside, and the tree began to hum softly. Lyra closed her eyes and listened. The hum turned into a melody, one she instinctively knew the words to. She sang along, and as her voice joined the song, the tree came alive. Its branches swayed, releasing a cascade of golden leaves that formed a path toward her final destination. The path led Lyra to a shadowy glade where no light could reach. She hesitated, but the memory of the lantern's glow gave her courage. She stepped forward, feeling her way through the darkness, until she stumbled upon a smooth, cool surface. It was a stone shaped like a heart and faintly glowing with an inner light. As soon as Lyra touched it, the darkness melted away, replaced by a warm, radiant glow. The fox reappeared, its fur even brighter than before. "You have done well, Lyra," it said. "You have proven your bravery, your harmony with the forest, and your ability to find light even in the darkest places." The Everglow Lantern floated down from its tree, landing softly in Lyra's hands. Its light grew brighter, filling her with a sense of purpose she had never felt before. From that day forward, Lyra became the keeper of the Everglow Lantern. She carried its light through the forest and beyond, guiding those who were lost and reminding them that even in the darkest times, a spark of hope could always be found. And so the Everglow Lantern's light continued to shine, illuminating not just the whispering woods, but hearts far and wide. As keeper of the Everglow Lantern, Lyra discovered that its light was more than just a source of illumination. It revealed truths, hidden paths, and even the emotions of those nearby. The villagers, once wary of the whispering woods, began to follow Lyra into its depths, trusting her and the lantern to guide them. One evening, a stranger arrived in the village. He was cloaked in shadows, his face obscured by a hood. His voice was soft but urgent as he approached Lyra, who sat near the village's great oak tree. "Keeper," he said, bowing slightly, "I have come seeking the lantern's light." Lyra nodded. "What troubles you, traveler?" The stranger hesitated before speaking. "My homeland lies beyond the Stormcliff Mountains. We have been plagued by a darkness that no fire or star can pierce. Our people are losing hope. They sent me to find the Everglow." Lyra's heart ached at his words. She had heard of the Stormcliff Mountains, a jagged range said to be cursed. Few dared to cross them, and even fewer returned. But she knew the lantern's purpose was to bring hope to the hopeless. "I will come with you," she said, standing tall. The stranger looked at her with surprise but also relief. The journey was arduous. Lyra and the stranger, who introduced himself as Kale, traversed dense forests, crossed rushing rivers, and climbed steep hills. Each night, the Everglow Lantern provided warmth and light, warding off the creatures that lurked in the shadows. As they approached the mountains, the air grew colder and the skies darkened. Kale shared stories of his homeland, a once vibrant kingdom called Velmara. Its fields were lush, its people joyful, until the darkness came. Crops withered, and an eerie silence fell over the land. "It began with the shroud," Kale explained as they made camp one night, "a thick mist that rolled in from nowhere. Then, one by one, the stars above Velmara disappeared. We feared we had angered the spirits of the mountains." Lyra listened intently, her resolve strengthening. If the Everglow Lantern could help, she would ensure its light reached Velmara. When they finally reached the Stormcliff Mountains, Lyra understood why so many had turned back. The peaks loomed like great beasts, their jagged edges cutting into an endless swirling mist. The shroud was thick and oppressive, muffling sound and distorting vision. Kyle hesitated, fear flickering in his eyes. "This is as far as I've come before. Beyond this, the darkness takes everything." Lyra tightened her grip on the lantern. Its light seemed to pulse, as if sensing the challenge ahead. "We will go together," she said firmly. As they stepped into the shroud, the lantern's glow pushed back the mist, creating a small bubble of clarity around them. But the deeper they went, the harder it became to move. The air was heavy, and shadows danced just beyond the light's reach. Then they heard it, a low, mournful wail that sent shivers down Lyra's spine. "What is that?" Kale whispered, his voice trembling. Before Lyra could answer, a figure emerged from the mist. It was tall and shrouded in tattered, blackened robes. Its face was obscured, but its presence was suffocating. "You dare bring light into my domain?" the figure rasped. Its voice was like the wind through dead trees. "This land does not belong to you," Lyra said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. The Everglow Lantern brings hope to those in need, and Velmara will not be lost to your darkness." The figure laughed, a hollow, echoing sound. "Hope. What a fragile thing. It flickers and fades, just like your light will." The figure reached out, and the shroud thickened, closing in around them. The lantern's light dimmed, and for a moment Lyra felt despair creeping in. But then she remembered the tasks she had completed, the star from the River of Dreams, the song of the silent oak, and the heart of the forest. Each had taught her something valuable: stillness, harmony, and courage. Lyra knelt, placing the lantern on the ground. Closing her eyes, she whispered the song of the silent oak. The melody was soft at first, but it grew stronger, resonating through the shroud. The lantern's light flared, and the mist began to recede. The figure recoiled, its form wavering. "What are you doing?" it hissed. Lyra opened her eyes, her voice unwavering. "Light doesn't just shine, it spreads." She took Kale's hand and stepped forward, the lantern's glow now blazing like the sun. The figure screamed as the light consumed it, and the shroud dissolved, revealing a breathtaking valley bathed in golden light. As they descended into the valley, Lyra and Kale saw the people of Velmara emerging from their homes, their faces filled with wonder. The stars above had returned, twinkling like diamonds in a velvet sky. Flowers bloomed where the darkness had once clung, and laughter rang out for the first time in years. Kyle turned to Lyra, gratitude shining in his eyes. "You have given us back our light." Lyra smiled, holding the lantern close. The light was always here. It just needed someone to remind it how to shine. From that day on, Lyra continued her journey, bringing the Everglow Lantern to places that had lost their way. And though her path was often uncertain, she never doubted the power of a single spark to ignite a world of hope. Years passed, and Lyra's name became known far and wide. The keeper of the Everglow Lantern was whispered about in markets, sung about by wandering bards, and even mentioned in royal courts. But with fame came new challenges. One winter night, as Lyra rested in a small forest village, a council of elders approached her. Their faces were grave, and their voices trembled as they spoke. "Keeper," one of them said, "a darkness unlike any other has emerged in the endless wastes to the south. Travelers speak of shadows that consume not just the land, but the very memories of those who wander too close." Lyra frowned. "Memories?" The elder nodded. "People forget their names, their homes, even their loved ones. It is as though the darkness feeds on who they are." The Everglow Lantern flickered faintly in Lyra's hand, as if sensing the weight of the words. She knew this was not a journey she could refuse. "I will go," she said. The elders bowed deeply, their hope resting entirely on her shoulders. The journey to the endless wastes was unlike any Lyra had taken before. The land was barren, the sky a dull, ashen gray. There was no wind, no birdsong, only an eerie, oppressive silence. As she stepped deeper into the wastes, she began to feel it, the tugging at the edges of her mind, as if unseen hands were trying to unravel her thoughts. She gripped the Everglow Lantern tightly, its light steady but muted. "I will not forget," she whispered to herself, repeating the names of her family, her village, and the whispering woods where her journey had begun. The lantern seemed to respond, its glow brightening slightly. Then she heard a voice. "Keeper." It was soft, almost gentle, and it seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Why do you cling to the light? Wouldn't it be easier to let go?" Lyra spun around, but there was no one there. "Who are you?" she called out. The voice laughed low and hollow. "I am Oblivion, the end of all things. Your light is but a flicker against the vastness of my shadow." Lyra took a deep breath. "You are nothing more than fear, and fear cannot stand in the presence of hope." The shadows thickened, coiling around her like smoke. Images began to flash before her eyes, her grandmother's face fading into nothingness, the silent oak crumbling to dust, the Everglow Lantern dimming until it was gone. "No," Lyra said firmly, closing her eyes. She focused on the lantern's warmth in her hand, letting its steady glow anchor her. "You can show me all the darkness you want, but I carry the light within me. You cannot take it." The shadows writhed, but Lyra stood her ground. Slowly, the lantern's light began to push back the darkness, revealing a figure standing at the heart of the wastes. It was humanoid but featureless, its form shifting and flickering like a mirage. "You cannot destroy me," it said, its voice quieter now. "I don't need to destroy you," Lyra replied. "You exist because there is fear and doubt in the world, but as long as there is also hope, you will never win." She held the lantern high, and its light burst forth, illuminating the entire landscape. The shadows recoiled, shrinking and retreating, until they were nothing more than faint wisps on the horizon. As the darkness faded, Lyra found herself standing in a transformed landscape. The wastes were no longer barren, but covered in soft, golden grasses that shimmered under a clear blue sky. In the distance, she saw people emerging from the shadows, their eyes wide with wonder. One of them, a young girl with tangled hair and tear-streaked cheeks, ran up to Lyra. I remember," the girl said, her voice trembling. "I remember my mother's face. I remember my home." Lyra knelt, smiling gently. "Hold on to those memories. They are your light." The girl nodded, clutching Lyra's hand tightly before running off to join the others. As the people of the wastes began to rebuild their lives, Lyra felt a sense of peace settle over her. The Everglow Lantern, its light steady and strong, seemed to hum softly in her hand. One night, as Lyra rested beneath the stars, the fox-like creature from the Whispering Woods appeared once more. Its fur gleamed like starlight, and its eyes held a mix of pride and sorrow. "You have done well, Lyra," it said, "but there is something you must know." Lyra sat up, her heart quickening. "What is it?" "The Everglow Lantern is not eternal. Its light comes from the Keeper's heart, and as it shines brighter to guide others, it also consumes a piece of you. Each act of hope, each victory, takes a toll." Lyra looked at the lantern, its glow so familiar yet suddenly heavy with meaning. "Will there come a day when the light fades?" The fox nodded. "One day your light will return to the stars, where all sparks of hope are born. But until that day you must decide how to use it." Lyra's gaze drifted to the horizon, where new challenges surely awaited. She felt the weight of her choice, but she also felt a profound sense of purpose. "Then I will keep going," she said softly. "Until the very last spark, I will bring hope to the world." The fox bowed its head, its form fading into the night. Lyra sat quietly for a moment, the lantern glowing gently beside her. She knew the path ahead would not be easy, but she also knew that as long as even a single spark remained, the light of the Everglow would never truly fade. And with that thought, she closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the lantern lull her into dreams of endless possibilities.